This anime begins with our protagonist called Toru Suda, who is returning to his homeland Kagala, well known for the famousness udon restaurants. He is back because his father has passed away, causing the family restaurant to close. He has no interest in continue with his family legacy, so his friend is sad and thinks that Tokyo has changed him, and that is why he doesn't want to stay in this small town. Sauda arrives his home, but sees the restaurant very disrepair and had a bad scare seeing that a child is in there, but this runs away. He doesn't give importance and go shopping for dinner, but the gossip neighbor says to him that is a child in the restaurant door and she thought he was his son. So the protagonist realizes that is the same child. He notices he is starving and invites him to go inside and make dinner for him while he consults his friend what to do since the child doesn't seem to be a neighbor's son because his untidy aspect. But he is not the type of person who cares about others, so he has said that he should take him to the police. The protagonist thinks it is the best because his parents may be worried about him. Sauda leaves him watching cartoons while he is looking for something to wear when his sister called him to ask how it is all going with the house because they wanted to sell after clean it up. The boy is now playing with a frog, so he has to hang up the call and see what's going on and get surprised by the frog jumping over his face. But this is just the beginning because the child now imitates the frog and jumps over him too, making the room a mess. Putting the raincoat on him, he remembers when he was also a child and was happy when he could go out and play in the rain thanks to his raincoat. Then a usual customer of the restaurant arrives and he has to give her the sad notice that they are not planning on reopening the restaurant ever again. Anyway, the girl asks if they can let her know if they open, so the protagonist is surprised on how important the restaurant is to people. Sauda takes the little boy to the police station, but he gets distracted by the frog again and ends up in a temple where a monk was going to take him thinking he was lost and also heard that a tanuki who shapeshifts to human was going around the town. But after seeing the child with the protagonist, he changed his mind. Then they encountered tourists looking for the restaurant, so we tell them it's closed again. But they are pretty insistent because the famousness of it. So he gets a little annoyed because you never mastered the family technique. Then the child notices his anger and attacks the tourists, so the protagonist stops him and is surprised to see that he's grown ears and a tail. This is definitely not normal, so we cover him up and run away with him while he remembers the monk words about a tanuki who can transform into a child. Anyway, he still can't believe what he just saw. Sauda panics into a dream about the tanuki child where he runs away. Besides, he is in denial because his mind cannot believe what he just saw. But next day he goes outside and the tanuki jumps over him as usual. However, he hides quickly because his neighbor comes to hunt him down for having destroyed the gardens. The protagonist doesn't snitch on him because the woman wanted to make a soap out of tanuki, so she quits and just gives a Tupperware of beans she made to him. The protagonist says that he doesn't want problems with any neighbor, but the tanuki is hungry and he accepts to feed him, so he jumps over him happily. After eating, the tanuki gets dirty, so the protagonist gives him a bath, and obviously his ears and tail attracts much attention. So he make him promise that he is not showing it, or other humans will hunt down him, so he accepts. The tanuki needs clothes, so they go shopping, and the tanuki is very excited because all of this is new to him. But Sauda is nostalgic going around the town because he met his first love at the train station, but it lasts too little because she had a boyfriend, and even now he is embarrassed at how he failed so quick. Arriving, the tanuki loves a tea with a lion he saw in the cartoons, but Suda thinks it is weird because he forgets the alimentary chain that a girl crashed with the tanuki and he starts crying. Her mother scolds her for being insensitive with him, and she turns out being the protagonist's first love called May. To top it all, she recognizes him, so he is nervous and remembers he hates the town for being small and meeting everyone by chance. So now he has to explain who the boy is, and he has not even chosen a name for him. Sauda makes up a name and calls him Poco, and how he likes it, he stays with it. Now they has met each other again, she invites him to a coffee shop, although he expected something different for this encounter with his first love. Rather than a romantic date, it is a gathering with child crying. Poco is surprised about how good-looking candies are, and when his jelly arrives, he looks like the happiest person in the world while Sauda feed him. So the May's daughter, called Nozomi, throws a tantrum because she wanted to be fed too, so Poco invites her a little bit of his jelly, and Nozomi realizes her bad behavior. May says that they look like father and son, and he says that they not because he doesn't even have a girlfriend. However, May says that don't hurry because he has plenty of time to get one, and he has lived a quite different life in Tokyo, so he still have time to live as a family guy just like her that was very happy these last years. May and Poco are now good friends, and now they come back home, but Poco is tired after a long day, so he falls asleep and his transformation vanished, so the protagonist has to lift him to home. Anyway, he realizes the odd things happen when they are together. This brings good memories to him. Next day, Sona remembers he can't stay here forever, and even more, he doesn't understand how it ended up like this, but all of a sudden his childhood friend called Nakajima arrives, wanting to go fishing with him. He forgot about Poco, so when he wakes up, the protagonist has a big scare because he has his tail. He is lucky because Nakajima doesn't ask him much about the little boy, but he recommends him a good lawyer if he is into weird things. Poco is excited touching Nakajima's car, but he scolds him for leaving a handprint on it and for stealing his friend. Anyway, he takes them to the port for fishing, but only by the edge because it can be dangerous for Poco. He is surprised seeing the lighthouse, so Sauda tries to raise him up, but his leg hurts because of an accident he had when he was in school. However, the protagonist is shocked because Nakajima asked what is Poco, but he really meant if he was a boy or a girl, and confirming he is a boy he regrets didn't shake him harder because he looked like an overprotective girl. Now they dress Poco for the occasion and show him the bait, but he finds it is delicious, so they have to take it away from him, and even more, the fishing might be slow, so Poco is bored and go to play around. Nakajima tells that he also met Mao by chance, and is surprised to see that she has children. So Soda asks him if he thinks about getting married, but he says that he speaks like his mother, but is not his plan because he heard that a man only have time for their family or their job, and him as a doctor wants to help the biggest number of people he could, so marriage is not in his plans by the moment. Stouda changes topic because they were sad about being single and confessed that until his father passed away, he didn't think about that he didn't want the restaurant to close down, but lots of things happened and now he wants to keep his home. Nakajima says that he must stay if he wants, but the protagonist is worried for his job because besides he can work there, he doesn't know if he could get customers, but he also doesn't know if he wants to come back to Tokyo. So Nakajima is annoyed with such hesitation. Poco tries to calm him down with the crab he caught, but the rod moves and almost takes the child, so Nakajima deduces it is something big, and it ended up being an octopus. It was angry about being fished, so it spills tint to Poco, and now he is scared. However, they are happy for at least fishing something because they haven't done it since they were students, and all of a sudden the protagonist decided to go to Tokyo, so they can never do it again. But he is grateful with Poco, because now he is remembering in pain. Then they go to rest a little bit while they eat ice cream, and Rinko says that this place brings some memories because they came with their father as children. Soda can't remember any of it, and Poco tries to calm him down with the crab he caught, but the rod moves and almost takes the child, so Nakajima deduces it is something big, and it ended up being an octopus. It was angry about being fished, so it spills tint to Poco, and now he is scared. However, they are happy for at least fishing something because they haven't done it since they were students, and all of a sudden the protagonist decided to go to Tokyo, so they could never do it again. But he is grateful with Poco, because now he is remembering the life he left behind. Then they are deeply slept, and the Sada's sister, called Rinko, arrives to the house. Poco is the first to wake up and is scared for seeing her, so he starts crying, waking up the others. Rinko asks whose the child is and deduces is Nakajima's, but he denies it immediately while Poco still cries, and Rinko feels bad because children always cry every time they see her. Nakajima says that he's afraid of her, so she responds by throwing him a punch, so he leaves an order for the protagonist to calm down her sister. So he explains that he's a friend's son and he is going to be there this vacation. Sada begins to worry about what will be of Poco once he leaves, so he remembers him that he shouldn't show anybody his ears and tail. Going down, everything is cleaned up and Rinko has the great idea to spend some time together and is going to the temple. Sada realizes that this temple worships Tanaka a lot, and even Rinko says that Poco seems like one, so the protagonist panics and changes topic. They continue walking around and they see that there is a legend of an ancient general that in reality it was a Tanuki. Also, he was considered a god, so the protagonist supposes he is a distant relative of Poco, but he just smiles as always. Then they do temple things as pray or test their luck. Sada realizes he's getting older because besides being tired, his leg is in pain. Then they go to rest a little bit while they eat ice cream, and Rinko says that this place brings some memories because they came with their father as children. Sada can't remember any of it, and Rinko scolds Poco for getting dirty, making him throw his ice cream because of the scare, so the protagonist calms him down and he goes to play around. Rinko feels frustrated that children hates her because the protagonist has always been the opposite, but she can't help but to think that if she could have given a grandson to his father, maybe their relationship would have been better. The protagonist feels the same but doesn't want to talk about it, and remember that he actually went there as a child, so he teach Poco the same his father taught him, how to throw tokens to water. Sada ignores the job calls because he is indecisive and calmed down her sister, saying that his returning calls later. However, they come back and Poco diverts towards a bridge, so they have a bad scare seeing that he almost fell off. The protagonist wants to go for him, but he has vertigo and cannot do it quickly in that old bridge, so is Rinko the one who helps Poco. After saving him, she sings a song in order to calm him down and continue the returning to home, and realizes that he has got attached to her brother but also likes her, so she starts to feel his maternal instinct, so they all return very happy to home. Days later, Nakajima is quietly at the hospital reminiscing his childhood until he receives a call from Soda, who invites him to lunch because he needs a favor. It turns out to be that he needs him to record a video for the ex-students gathering. Nakajima says that he has to take care about himself besides lose time with Poco, and the protagonist to stay quiet because he feels it is true. But Poco attacks Nakajima for saying that kind of things. His teacher is surprised to see the protagonist with a child. Then, as usual, Nakajima and Soda start to argue, and Poco asks them to calm down and get along with each other. So the teacher finds it funny that a child has to tell them how to behave. Soda feels that he got away with everyone for living in Tokyo and feeling he was upside all of them, but he wants to change that and meet their classmates. All of a sudden, they realize that Poco is being chased by a giant dog, so they lift him and start to run away from the dog. Suddenly, Poco's shoe fell off and he tries to get back facing the dog that jumps toward him, but before it gets Poco, Nakajima sacrifices himself in order to save the child. However, the animal was friendly and just licks his face. It turns out that Nakajima has always had that heroic instinct, even when the protagonist was a child. From then on, they get along well with the dog, and Nakajima asks Soda to come with him to some place in order to return the favor. Then the dog's owner appears and recognizes Soda from the restaurant and see that Poco get along along well with the dog. She introduces herself as Sei. Now Nakajima decides to leave the place and they follow him. He reveals that he is visiting his father. Then in his father's house, Nakajima argues with his parents because they told him that his father was physically bad, but it doesn't seem like that after all. Nakajima's mom invites them to take a shower together to take advantage on the fact they are all there and uses Poco as an excuse to push them to do it, so they have no choice but to accept. Nakajima takes Poco to other shower and leaves Sato with his father, turning out a really uncomfortable situation. The father breaks the ice saying that doesn't understand his son, because at the beginning he didn't want to be a doctor, but changed his mind when the protagonist was injured. In the other shower, Nakajima and Poco rest in the hot shower and Poco is so much relaxed that ends up transforming into his original shape. So when he sees himself in the mirror, he goes underwater and shape shifts quickly to human, although he loses consciousness. Sato says to Nakajima that he should talk with his father while he can because they are
Consigue un alivio 2 veces más rápido contra el dolor de dientes con la tecnología de Colgate Sensory Pro Alivio.
Albion Online es un MMORPG de modo sandbox en el que tú escribes tu propio.
And it is normal to argue sometimes. Meanwhile, the father is taking care of Poco and realizes that he loves pineapple as much as his son when he was a child. Sato goes home and Nakajima realizes that his father puts a lot of effort on the hothouse because he is growing pineapples and now he is very grateful to him for brew something very delicious for him. On the other hand, Poco and the protagonist are having dinner very happy, but he receives a call from his job. They are in big troubles. The next day, Poco wakes up in Tokyo and is surprised over how big the city is. It turns out that Sato came back as soon as possible and had no option but took Poco with him, so now he has to make a decision soon. Their friends are surprised he returned with a child and his boss wants to have a talk with him as soon as possible. So Poco is alone and is afraid of Sato's co-workers and ends up running away to the room where developers were resting. The protagonist explains to his boss that he needs more time because he has to take care of Poco, but he doesn't understand why he has to take care of a child that doesn't belong to him due as a responsibility that spent lots of time and money, so now he wants to fix that quickly because he is really valuable for the company and he knows the protagonist loves his job. Sato's friend called Hiroshi interrupts because Poco has interrupted his rest and now is angry with the protagonist because he wants to come back to his homeland again, and he is angry with Poco too because he is the reason of that. Sato stays working late and remembers that his boss was the person who taught him many things about web designing and also offered a job in Tokyo, and that is why he is so grateful. But now he sends him home because notice that Poco is bored after a long day and weird for him. They are having dinner but Poco doesn't even touch his food and the protagonist realizes something is off and goes home. In the house, Poco faints and can't take him to the hospital because of his ears and tail, so he calls Nakajima, but he doesn't take the call. Hiroshi finds out that Poco is sick and runs towards the protagonist's house because wants to apologize with him for being rude with Poco. So he breaks in and is really surprised to see a boy with ears and tail. He thinks they are fake, but it seems real to the touch. So the protagonist sends him to rest and made up that is all because of the lack of sleep. The next day, Poco is recovered, and when Hiroshi wakes up, the first thing he does is watching Poco and is surprised to see that he has neither ears nor tail. Anyway, he insists in what he saw in the night, but Sato changes topic, confessing the decision he has chosen. Sato has decided to return to homeland because he doesn't want to leave Poco, so Hiroshi is sad because he wanted to finish the project with him. Later, the protagonist delivers his resignation letter, but asking for the chance to finish the project with the group, and his boss accepts and keep the letter until he finished that first. Then he invites them for a walk to a viewpoint where to reveal that in Kagawa there is a marketing company working with websites, so he can work there. Sato is surprised that there is a company like that there and thanks him because he's happy of him being his boss all this time. On the other hand, Hiroshi plans to visit him every time he could, although he can't forget what he saw that night he broke in the protagonist's house. Sato returns to Kagawa and now has to explain to his sister that he quit his job to live in the town, so now she is worried about the decision because all the things he has to do now. But discuss it by phone is really annoying, so she says that she will visit soon. Nakajima also feels that he should be more worried about his job because it is difficult life with a job like that in this town, but the protagonist has no worries by the moment because they still has a project ongoing in Tokyo. Nakajima leaves and the protagonists start cooking lunch, but he realizes that now he is a house husband because he spent lots of time in the kitchen cleaning and sleeping. He also notices that Poco is not there and see him going to visit the neighbor and is surprised to see how he is doing it by himself. The neighbor comes with Poco to invite him some watermelons, and while she teaches Poco how to eat watermelon, she tells Suda that his granddaughter is also feeling like moving into Tokyo and is arguing with his dad to get his approval. This conversation brings memories to the protagonist, so he recommends that his granddaughter to speak with her father, and the grandmother finds funny that a young man is giving her advices. By the night, Poco starts to scratch the walls, so Sato begins with the pains of being dad, but suddenly he receives a call from Mai asking him for a favor. It turns out that she has to go to the doctor, but there is a Go-Go's event, the children's favorite cartoon, so Sato offers to take them there, and Mai is very grateful for that and gives him an advice to correct children that she developed and that Sato still hasn't, and it is to scold them when they are not behaving, but he has to do it creatively or explains the reason good. Sato is surprised that Nozomi has matured so much that now is kind with Poco and even take care of him, walking around the entire place. He is surprised how Nozomi has improved her attitude. They are amazed at the fishes, and Sauda says that they can feed them, so the kids are excited seeing how they eat bread, but they didn't take into account that a lot of them who came and now they are shocked on how they destroy the bread. The Gago festival is about to start and the kids are already amused. Bensei appears with his brother that is a Tanuki enthusiast monk from the temple. It gives a bad feeling to the protagonist, but in this occasion he only will be the DJ, so he completely changes his appearance to liven up the festival. Kids are completely crazy dancing with the Gago lion, and even Sei can't help but dance with them. Sauda is exhausted, so he just watches from the distance while the kids play, and when they finish, Mei thanks him for the support and offers her help when he needs it. At home, Sauda puts paper in the walls so Poco can paint it without scratch walls, and he remembers that has done the same when he was a kid and was his father who has to dealt with that. But he never reproached him anything, so he thinks that he should have talked more with him when he was alive. However, now he has to take care about Poco, so he leaves him lie down and receives a call from his boss. The next day, Sauda goes to Sadoshima Port in Ferry, where the marketing company his boss recommended him is situated, and Poco is fascinated about going over the sea. His boss tells him that Hiroshi decided to go on vacation and is going to visit him. Now him and Poco climbs up the ferry to see the sea and feel the air in their faces. Once in mainland, Sauda arrives at the office, but there is no one except Yuki, which is sorry because her boss is out, so she recommends to walk around the island while waiting for him, so Poco and him goes to walk by the seashore. It makes him wonder how much time he will be with Poco, so he decides to enjoy all the moments together. On the other hand, Hiroshi arrives to Kagawa and ran into Rinko, turning out to be love at first sight. Turning back with the protagonist, he is sleeping, so Poco go to walk around and finds a boat with a Gago flag, so he goes up and ends up trapped in the boat, unintentionally heading the sea. Yuki finds Hiroshi and see him depressed. He explains that even if he mastered everything at developing, he couldn't get the number of the girl he liked, but Sauda interrupts very frightened because Poco is nowhere to be found, so they start to look for him separately. Sauda looks over the entire island and is really worried about Poco being found in his Tanuki shape and someone taking him for that. He is so frightened that he confuses a wild Tanuki with Poco, and trying to catch it is almost ran over by a taxi where her sister was traveling, but he realizes that it is not Poco, and now he bursts into tears and reveals that he has lost Poco. Rinko slaps him in order for him to calm down because he has to focus on looking for him, so Sauda remembers all the nice moments they spent together and regain composure to look for him. Just by luck, he hears his voice in the distance, so he ran into the seashore and confirms that the shout is from Poco, who was in a boat coming toward him. Sauda scolds him for went with a completely stranger, so Poco is sad. But anyway, he gives him a hug now that he found him. It turns out to be that the boat owner is the company's CEO called Manamu, so Yuki scolds him very hard for disappear without letting them know, causing all this trouble. However, Manamu introduces himself as the president of Team Planet, which is the company he manages. Anyway, they still have to tell Hiroshi that they found Poco, and now he is angry because he ran over the entire island looking for him. But now that the mission is accomplished, his spite's feelings for losing the love of his life returns. To his good luck, he sees her